So hello and welcome to another episode of the Wiki Weekdays podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Karl Smallwood, joined as ever by the lovely and illustrious Lucas Holland.
Hello there.
If anyone unfamiliar with the format of Wiki Weekdays, myself and Lucas will scour the lengths and breadths of the internet for a wiki on a subject you're interested in and bring it forward for discussion. But before we get to your wiki for this week, Lucas, we have to make mention of a very special guest, don't we?
We do indeed, yes. There is one thing on screen that we haven't introduced just yet.
And that is our Pet of the Week. And the Pet of the Week is decided upon by you, our audience, by voting on our Discord. And if you have a Pet of the Week, or a pet you think could top this week's Pet of the Week, if you think your pet could kick the crap out of the pet that's currently on screen, or is cuter, or just more photogenic, submit your photo, let us know. Join our Patreon at any tier, get our Discord, get those pets submitted. The blurrier, the better, in my opinion.
I was going to say, or even just a blurrier picture than the one we've got right now.
The thing is, what I want a photo so blurry, we can't tell what it is. I want a photo so blurry that it gets mistaken for, a haunting in your house. Do you know people have, those pets where you never see them? And it's like, Do you have, a ghost? Instead, no, I've got a cat who's really skittish. Actually, no, wait a minute. It's October in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
No, well, okay, idea. Folks at home. Submit pictures of your pets, of course, but if anyone has any photos of any ghostly phenomenon, send those in as well. Because if we get some of those for when exactly does Halloween fall? Is it on a Wednesday?
So Halloween's
a Friday.
Halloween doesn't start. It's on Friday, but we would have depending on how many submissions we get of ghouls and ghosts. There is 5 weeks in October where we could do a Wednesday post of Pet of the Week.
We're giving people 2 to 3 weeks notice, right? If you have any pictures of any purported ghostly phenomenon, submit into our Patreon and maybe we'll have a poltergeist of the week. Ghost of the week, right?
I don't know if we can promise it throughout all of October, but maybe at least on Halloween week, if we get some submissions and we get some votes in, then we can do poltergeist of the week.
Yeah, I would love a podcast poltergeist.
That'd be cool.
Just getting haunted, big haunted live on stream, but we don't have a podcast poltergeist, a PP. We do have the PPs in the sense of, though, we have podcast producers. They're the people who supported our Patreon at the producer tier, and you'll see their names floating around, almost like ghosts.
Yeah, right now above our head is Joe Bob, so thank you, Joe Bob.
Joe Bob's a great name for a ghost. And a ghost called Joe Bob.
I don't know what makes Casper such a perfect name, but Casper's a perfect name.
It really is, right? But I would be interested if anyone in our audience has any purported ghostly phenomenon they've captured on camera. Or maybe something just spooky and mysterious. Maybe a cryptid. Or just a picture of somewhere haunted.
That's the thing. We're not specifically asking for ghost of the week. Just creep of the week.
Or maybe something spooky. Some spooky goings on, right?
Creep of the week sounds so bad.
Creep of the Week's a very different podcast.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Creep of the Week sounds like one of those roundup podcasts for what drama happened on YouTube this week. Or Creep of the Week.
Yeah, it sounds like we're entering the true crime podcast territory, right?
Do you know what? I was about to say that seems awfully dismissive for a true crime podcast, but are you familiar with the true crime podcasts where they try and talk about murderers and serial killers, but they refuse to use those terms and still use unaliving?
I get it for we've literally recently been demonetized on a video for using the word.
Yes, I understand people do use the term unaliving. There's just something, if you're going to make your entire brand or your gimmick talking about crime, it feels so. It's like you're dipping your toes partly the way in.
Yeah.
If you're going to monetize that content, say the word.
Karl, I've watched, or at least seen in the background, many true crime podcasts or documentaries. Am I saying that? I don't know why I'm getting held up on that word. But the amount of Netflix times they've done a documentary and it's oh, well, we've done half of a documentary, and then it's a true crime documentary that just ends with we don't know.
I respect the honesty of that.
Just oh, well, and now it turns out that we've done a documentary really early, and the answer hasn't come out yet. So
I respect the honesty of that. One of my biggest frustrations, like one of the reasons why we've never really delved into true crime, is one, I'd feel really dirty making content about people who passed away or died or like suffered some horrific tragedy.
You are especially right, but if we do pivot to it, it's just because we want money at some point, right?
We do want money, yeah.
Yeah.
The other aspect as well is that I really hate how narrative driven a lot of those stories are. I think we're not talking about it, but I think to the Gabby Petito case, very, very tragic case. That young lady unfortunately taken from us too soon. Mm-hmm. And when that story was happening in real time, true crime fans and true crime aficionados started like theorizing what might be happening. And when the case was resolved, or as resolved as it could have been, where like they found the person responsible, and I'm not sure if I think they may have taken their life, there was like a bunch of conspiracy theories going around from true crime fans because that wasn't to them a satisfying ending because they're used to the highly editorialized format of true crime videos where there's a story. Like, they follow traditional storytelling format of like, beginning, middle, end. Mm-hmm. The unsatisfying conclusion to that, even though in real life there are many times that a conclusion is unsatisfying, had them annoyed. They were annoyed by a real case of someone dying because it wasn't entertaining enough, and that's fucking annoyed me.
That's very true. That's not to be dismissed at all, but like it also pisses me off when like Netflix will jump on, say for example, Luigi Mangione, right?
Luigi Mangione, right? Of like killer ? Yeah, like bright. Like,
nothing has even gone through the courts yet, but we need to make money now, not later. So we're going to make the podcast or the documentary right now, and I will confuse like podcasts and documentaries a lot just because true crime is all over those two places, and I'm aware of both of them a lot, but like I did enjoy one aspect of we recently talked about Dexter.
Okay.
And Dexter New Blood, one of the main characters is Jamie Chung playing a true crime podcaster that's basically trying to get access through the police to get all of the info about this serial killer, and it actually does a good job of showing how frustrating and misinformed those podcasters can be and how annoying they can be.
Well, I think too, it's like Dharma. There's like, some of the victims' families are still knocking about. Like, it only happened like 30, 40 years ago. I don't know the exact timeline because I'm not a weirdo who memorizes this stuff. Mm-hmm. And like every time they release a new documentary or film about it, the surviving family members are like, please stop doing this because every time you do it, fucking weirdos come to our house and bug us about it.
And that's the thing that I want to be like, transparent about, is the fact that not having a go at podcasters or documentarians. Like
documentarians, I give them slightly more leeway because there's at least the veneer of.
As a person literally on a podcast right now, I don't hate all podcasters.
I hate the ones who do that.
That you have a privilege to go and just beg, borrow, and steal your way to like crucial information on a case when it's like you're just bugging people about like a death of a family member, right? And like that kind of shit pisses me off. And
it's one step removed from like culture vulture journalism, right? It's like one step removed from those people who like from TMZ and paparazzo who stand outside like restaurants and hassle celebrities. And
exactly, yeah.
At least with a celebrity, I don't agree with it, but there is that social contract that celebrity has agreed to be in the public eye. How much
a lot of them aim to be in the public eye, right? Like with reality TV stars and stuff.
The victims and family members of victims of horrific crimes didn't sign up for that. So Louis Theroux is the topic of our.
Louis Theroux is my topic for the week.
So no specific Louis Theroux episode or anything, just Louis Theroux as a person.
Yes, only because I was at friends over the weekend, and
Louis. So your Uncle Louis?
No, I was all Louis. No, I was at friends, and we ended up watching a couple of episodes of Louis Theroux talking about like America and how it's changing, and surprisingly, somehow, then my social media accounts like TikTok and stuff ended up showing me Louis Theroux clips, I wonder how that could have happened.
That's a whole kettle of fish.
That's a different wiki to talk about. But yeah, I have been exposed to some Louis Theroux stuff over the weekend, and I thought it'd be interesting to talk about them as a person, because maybe talking too much specifics about a specific topic or episode might be too depressing, because
and we, as we've established, we don't really like delving into subjects like that, because we don't feel that what we bill as a comedy podcast, if you're not laughing, fair, like humor's subjective, but we try to keep this
pretty dark so far.
Yeah, we try and keep it light, and we feel there are certain topics that just don't lend themselves well to a comedy podcast. There's topics that we wouldn't want to talk about because we wouldn't feel comfortable joking about them or having them parallel to us making jokes, because it just wouldn't feel right.
No.
Like, if we talked about, if we ever pivoted to true crime, we wouldn't be making silly jokes at the start of the video or having like a person's pet on the page. This we'd be in completely different blank looking rooms, right?
Mm-hmm.
We'd be leaning into our microphone, we'd be talking real deep and slow and respectful.
I'll be like talking ASMR wise into your mic.
Yeah. No. So this week we're talking about a person who was dismembered and put in their car. Smash that like button.
Fucking hell.
Right. That's what I mean. There's levels to this.
And yeah, I don't want to get too deep into it. I would say, as a person, to keep things serious for a minute, as a person who is, I'd classify myself as going to the point of being very left wing at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I agreed to watch some of this stuff that Louis Theroux has put out, because
it's a tough watch, right?
Important. It's a tough watch, but it's important to educate yourself on how there has been such a far right movement in recent times, and
yes,
I think it is very much like I think it's good to educate yourself on how the other side is happening, and to keep yourself educated on that kind of topic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go deep into it. I might take the piss out of a couple of moments in those episodes, but I think it is fascinating that Louis Theroux sees the alt-right internet movement as being important enough to be the subject of multiple documentaries. And
yes. Plus, I guess as well, people might be wondering, who is Louis Theroux? So the beauty of Wiki Weekends is that we can tell you now, because me and Luce are talking about Louis Theroux because we know who he is, but for anyone out there who's not familiar with him, you might think, who's this dude? So would you like to describe who Louis Theroux is?
Yeah, thank you for bringing me back on topic, as you often do. But Louis Sebastian Theroux, born 20th of May 1970, is a British and American documentarian, journalist, broadcaster, and author. He has received 3 British Academy Television Awards and a Royal Television Society Television Award, and they are a documentarian who has, strived throughout the years to deal with some of the most controversial topics out there.
Yes, so people who are unfamiliar with Louis Theroux's work as a whole may be familiar with one documentary in particular they did, which is where they visited the Westboro Baptist Church. They were notably one of the first journalists to be given access to the church, and a lot of the later information about them is a direct result of Louis Theroux basically giving them the platform. And he's talked in the years since of, do you feel responsible at all for putting them on the national stage? He's to a degree, but they were already going out there and picketing people's funerals on the national news.
Yeah.
What more could I have done to promote them?
It's one of those things, right, of Louis seems to, whether it's him or his team or whatever, seems to be able to pick topics that are already within some kind of culture or subculture that is, prevalent, and they do the best to try and expose that. And it says here that their work includes studies of unusual and taboo subcultures, crime and the justice system, as well as celebrities. And the majority of his documentaries are set in the United States, but he also has studied cultures in South Africa, Israel, Nigeria, and the UK.
Yes,
and
so he's more known like for his serious documentaries, which we'll presumably will touch upon and hopefully treat them with the reverence and like respect and solemnity that such topics deserve. I got into Louis Theroux from his earlier journalistic works. He used to do like a lot of interviews and stuff, and he parlayed that into Louis Theroux's Weird Weekends, and that's like one of his first TV gigs. So, are you familiar with Weird Weekends at all?
So that's something that's mentioned here that I'm not familiar with. So maybe you could educate me a little bit on that.
So Weird Weekends is like Louis Theroux was doing like a lot. He was working as a journalist. And he did a lot of interviews, and part of his interviewing process, and part of the reason he became so successful is that he had a very, I'm not going to say like laid back approach to interviewing, but he's got a very disarming personality. And as part of his interview process, what he'd do is more hang out with the person for a day. Mm-hmm. And he pitched the idea of, well, how about I just hang out with them for an entire weekend and document the entire experience? And some of the episodes include, like he did a wrestling one, where he went to like, a wrestling training camp to interview a bunch of people there, but he takes part in it. He did one on pornography. And he briefly appears in a pornographic movie as an extra in the background, but like, and his reasoning was if someone just goes in, sits there for an hour and asks them a question, okay, I might get some information. But if I spend the weekend with them, after a certain point, they're going to let the guard down. And that's at the point where they're going to answer my questions more honestly. And I'm going to get prompted to ask them questions I maybe wouldn't have thought of when I get to experience their life as they live it.
And I think that's the strength of Louis as like a documentarian and as an interviewer, is that he has a way of disarming people. Like, I remember recently seeing a clip of an interview that he said, it is to his dismay that he is as like maybe on guard and insincere as he is, because that clearly came into problems with his like actual personal relationships. Mm-hmm. But in terms of being an interviewer, he does it so well, where he manages to like be insincere but sincere enough, where like he just lets people kind of come at him and bring things to him. He's
detached enough where he asks questions without judgment. There's an earnestness to the way that he asks questions that if he took, I'm not really sure if it's the right term, but if he gave more of a shit, the person he's asking the question of might be more on guard. But because he just asks it seemingly so just innocently. Like, for example, one of the documentaries and one of the ones that he regrets the most, he actually did a follow-up documentary to it. It's a Weird Weekends, where he spent the weekend, it's a week, but he spent a couple of weeks with him, is Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, and so he did like a follow-up on that, talking about how like Jimmy Savile kind of like let him kind of like fail in that regard, right?
Yes, and you can actually see his interview process now, but for Americans or people who maybe are not familiar, most English people, I think all English British people listening to this know, but Jimmy Savile was a children's entertainer and celebrity personality for 20, 30, 40 years in the UK. After they died, was outed as a massive sex pest, literally preying on the young and old to the point where there are rumours they engaged in necrophilia.
And there literally is clips out there of
him admitting
Louis Theroux like confronting him about the rumours that like, are you a paedophile? And like Jimmy Savile kind of brushing it off.
He straight up just asked him the question, right? And Jimmy Savile's
like, there's a lot of rumours about you, and like, are any of them true? And Jimmy Savile just brushes it off as like, I hate kids. And that's pretty much all he gets out of him. But
that follow-up documentary though is super interesting because Louis, he says like, with the hindsight's 2020, but some of the stuff that when I'm watching back the documentary, it's harrowing. Like just when he asked him like, Jimmy, like, you're this louder than life personality that everybody in the country knows. I don't feel like I really know you. Does anybody know you? And just Jimmy goes, well, that's the thing. If people knew the real me, they wouldn't like me. And laughs. It's like...
And literally in the other question I talked about, he says like, well, because I'm around kids a lot, people assume a lot of things and assume this. And it's easier to just say that I hate kids so that people assume the opposite. And that's how I get around it. And it's like, with hindsight, that answer is way more suspicious, right?
Oh yeah,
and like, people are calling out Louis, obviously, nowadays, looking back at that kind of thing of like, well, how could you not know? It's like, because he was a beloved figure at the time, and people gave him
he was literally
the
friends with the royal family.
Yeah, like, literally, he was friends with the most powerful people in Britain.
Not to mention, as well, he was a huge booster for charity. Like, he raised millions for various charities, and as a result, was virtually untouchable. Like, there's stories that have been told, like, by journalists and stuff, of when they got sent these rumours, they'd get immediately quashed by higher-ups of, like, we're not attacking... Like, no one wants to run the headline of beloved, charitable figure who's raised millions for, like, all these, like, worthy causes is being accused of this heinous crime. We don't want that on the front page.
I want to clarify, Jimmy Savile, horrible, disgusting human being, like, not even a human being, like, fuck them into hell a million times over. And I think it's just important to know that, like, Louis at the time did not know, and there was a lot of work to suppress that information, but they still tried to confront them on that, because there was clearly some murmuring behind the scenes that they'd heard about. And, like, I know that a lot of people have, like, looked back at that and said, like, why didn't Louis do more? He literally did an entire documentary to follow up on that and talk about the fact he's ashamed he didn't do more.
Well, he asked himself that same question, and the other aspects of the documentary, like, why didn't Louis know? It's something he dresses off. Just, it's human instinct, if not to think the best of people, to at least not think the worst of them. Mm-hmm. And maybe, you know, he was an older man, and he was guilty of questionable behaviour. Maybe he was, like, a bit sexist, and he might be a bit handsy. It takes a really dark line of thinking to assume that someone was capable of what he was.
Yeah.
And I think to my dad, who works in social services, I won't clarify any of the cases that he's worked on, but he's worked in, you know, he's had to work some pretty horrific cases. I remember asking about this once, out of, like, sheer morbid curiosity of, like, something that happens when you have these cases, these horrible cases of child abuse. It's, how did social services not know? And his answer was, if we went into everyone's house assuming they were capable of that, we wouldn't be very good social workers, right?
Yeah.
Like, why would we assume that parents were capable of doing something like that? Because if we did, and that's what we were suspecting them of, we'd be awful people, right? And obviously, people are, but it's such a
those people are way worse than that. But yeah, it would be inhumane to immediately be suspicious of people for those kind of heinous crimes.
Also, as well, imagine how much that would just wear on your soul.
And that's why social workers generally get very early retirement ages, right?
They do indeed, yes. But the way he worded that so just elegantly, if we go into every child's home, assuming that the parents want the best for them, it's just that they're unable to provide that, and we want to help them in any way that we can. We don't go in there assuming that they're abusing their kids. Like, kid has bruises. We're not going to assume that the kid is being abused, because if we go in with that mindset, then we're not going to be going in the mindset to help the parents. Obviously, if that ends up being the case, we can deal with that as and when it happens, and we do our best to do that. But we don't go in assuming that a child is being abused, because that is an awful way of thinking, and you're not going to be a successful social worker doing that, because you're not going to be able to do your duty of providing care for the child.
No,
if your assumption is negative.
We have both spoken ourselves about multiple times of childhood stories of getting hurt and getting bruises and like, you know, me and my neighbour accidentally split my sister's head open, and you've talked about like a story of your friend getting his head split open by a chomp bar or something like that, right?
Yeah, injuries happen, and if like it's to go in there with like an immediately suspicious mindset is dangerous. And I think it's like, think of Reddit, right? And true crime has resulted in this, where like the sheer amount of true crime content out there has people suspecting that murderers around every corner, even though every statistic and study shows that, well, like, violent crime is down across the board. You wouldn't know that, though, in some communities, because they consume so much of this content, and they're being effectively trained to see the world in that way.
And don't get me wrong,
it's bad for them.
I think...
But then someone's counter and said, well, these things do happen. They do. But if you go into every situation assuming they're going to happen, you're not going to have a good time. Like, it's one thing to be careful. It's another thing to just automatically assume, say, like, every... Like, no... every person with a bruise is being abused.
Yeah, I think it's always a good thing to be careful. Don't get me wrong.
Have personal responsibilities, don't find yourself in dangerous situations, be mindful of your surroundings, be able to read people's intentions.
Things like, asking your friend to, make sure that they let you know when they're home.
When they're home safe,
just little bits, obviously, it's good to be aware and safe, but obviously, yes, this does cause, as you say, a bit of a paranoia.
It does, and that paranoia
not to say that things can't happen.
Of course, and that's usually the counter, right? Of it does happen, it does, but not to the extent that you believe. And also, going around assuming that every single, if you go the warped view of reality that you have is potentially dangerous, and we have evidence of that in those cases where you have kids knocking on doors, and the paranoid weirdo gun owner just opens fire through the door because they think it's an intruder.
I think it's one of those, right? Of both sides of the extreme are not great, because if you assume that everybody on the street that you walk past is some violent criminal that's going to do something, that's bad. But assuming that every person you walk past on the street has never got any bad intention is also not safe.
Yeah, but and the skill there and the nuance that often gets ignored is in reading the situation.
Mm-hmm. And I literally have lived for many, many years in a city which in the UK has not got a great reputation from 40, 50 years ago, which is Liverpool. I can't really tell you a time I've had any problems myself. There is a lot of crime in the city, as is every city centre, but I don't walk down every single street assuming that every single person is a bad person.
It means you have. We also need to clarify that we're saying this from the perspective of two white dudes.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're not going to diminish the feelings that women, for example, would have.
We definitely are in a safer situation, and that's why I especially take care to try and do my best to, make sure I, especially around females, make sure I say, ask if they could send me a message when they're home safe or walk them home or whatever, because, that still is...
Yeah, you're just being aware of the reality of the situation, right? Of there is in the case of women and speaking to women, it's that paranoia is not unearned.
No, it's not.
It's not. I'm more speaking the broader cases of have you seen those videos of this is what I do when I go to a hotel room and they block up all the door and put locks on stuff. It's there's being safe and there's being paranoid, and one of them is going to result in you not actively enjoying life.
Yeah.
But it's also difficult to say, hey, don't be wary of crime.
And we're kind of going down a bit of a rabbit hole here. So
it's a difficult subject to address and talk about, which is why we don't normally talk about or address it, because we're not equipped to deal with it. And also, we can't speak for everybody. We can only generalise about our own experiences, and we have very limited experience of these things. So I do apologise for that if anything I've said has come across as at all from a position of privilege. I'm aware of that and acknowledge it. I can only speak to my own experiences.
I don't want to be seen as being
dismissing people's feelings
or anything like that, of course, or patronising. We're
of course not, no.
Doing our best to try and understand other people's experiences. And my experience right now, just to let people know, is there's a little fly coming around my face.
House. That's actually the government surveillance drone.
No, yeah.
It's filming you for the next the Louis Theroux rock. But we're back to Louis Theroux. Weird weekends, super fun.
Back to Louis Theroux. I think it's very fun to watch Louis Theroux in a very harrowing way, because if you've got the right mentality at the right time to watch them, of watching the most mild-mannered person in the most kind of smart way interviewing people in a secretly super aggressive way. It's so interesting.
It's also just how fearless he is. I think where he did the documentary on American prisons, and he walks into a holding cell, in a not very good prison in a very underfunded city. And he walks into the game. He just looks like the biggest dude there and goes, "So, just for example, say I was arrested. What would happen to me?" And he goes, "Well, first of all, I'd take those shoes." And Lucas is like, "You take my shoes?" And the guy starts laughing. He's like, "Of course I'd take your shoes." Like, why would you want my shoes? And he goes like, because it's to show that I have power over you. And it's like, the first part is like, okay, it's illuminating, but it's when Louis Theroux asks the guy to explain himself, and you see the dude do a double take. Go, wait a minute, yeah, why do I do that?
Yeah, and you clearly see the evolution of Theroux nowadays compared to, like, you know, obviously the reflection he had on something like a Savile documentary where he kind of let Savile rule the roost a little bit.
Yeah, he
whereas
did.
Now
he was kind of like not in awe of his celebrity, but he let the fact he had that celebrity and that cultural cachet, he sort of treated him with kid gloves. Something we say knowing that he straight up asked him, "Are you a child predator?" He could have gone in a bit harder on those interview questions.
He could have done. And I do think he went in harder than anyone else I've ever seen go in on him. But he still did take that air of celebrity and that air of, like, personality.
That
let him disarm him a little bit, whereas modern Louis is like, absolutely fuck no. And you modern can see that change.
Yeah. Like, modern Louis doesn't give a fuck. Like, he just strikes you as that guy who's like, he's the dude is like face down like fucking Mexican cartel members and death squads. Do you think like a celebrity who's been a bit of a wrong un, who could like, I'm going to sue you and get you blacklisted from the industry? Is like, do you think I give a fuck?
The most recent one he seems to be working on is working with some maybe like right wing kind of like I'm trying to think of the Andrew Tate-esque guy. Like, he clearly wants to be an Andrew Tate-esque guy.
Oh, a sex predator. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. And he's doing a documentary with him where the follow-up, his mum has to be in every scene. And it's interesting seeing clips of like what is clearly the documentary being made, and this guy putting out of like, "Oh, isn't Louis such an idiot?" And you can just see him like absolutely stone-faced. I am going to ruin you.
Well, it's like you said, it's really funny because clearly that guy, I'm not familiar with who it is, but given the description,
I'm not familiar with who it is, but
I imagine he's like, you know,
seen clips,
a posturing like faux macho dickhead who's trying to like, you know, cajole and threaten Louis Theroux. And it's like Louis Theroux sat there like, I sat in front of like cartel death squad members with guns. Do you really think I'm? That's what Louis is doing in his head, right? He's just playing that time someone pointed a gun directly in his face, and he's like,
and it's so interesting to see the way that he interviews people, because he makes everybody think that like
he agrees
they're
with them.
On top of him.
Yeah, like he because he's so disarming and assuming, they think they've got the upper hand. It reminds me somewhat of Sacha Baron Cohen when he does like his in-character interviews, where he used, for example, Borat. He plays the character of Borat.
By the way, you know, known shithead, Sacha Baron Cohen. Just to clarify,
we don't know what Borat's
the way that they interview, at least.
Like, for example, like Borat, there's a great moment in the Borat movie, the first one, where he's on the bus and a bunch of like college dudes get on the bus, and because they think they're talking to a foreigner, and it's for a documentary that's only going to be aired in Kazakhstan, like, just Sacha Baron Cohen in character as Borat's like, "So, you going to get the girls?" or something like that, and they all talk about how like, yeah, we're going to fuck all the chicks, don't call them, who gives a fuck, like they horrible misogynistic language, because they think that they're in a safe space.
Yeah.
Similar to like Louis Theroux, right, where they think, "Oh, I've got the upper hand on Louis. Like, I'm going to go all in," and Louis like just flips over that man-eater bug. It's like, "You fucking fool."
Like, every
you
time.
fucking fool.
And, like, the way that they've somehow managed to capture people on camera with their team talking like, "Oh, yeah, well, obviously I'm being interviewed by this, like, English journalist that I can't trust." And then immediately will say something that will just throw themselves under the bus. And, like...
And I think that's the benefit of his style. Like I said the weird weekend style, because obviously it happens very quickly in the documentary, but those documentaries take weeks, months, sometimes years to make. And I feel it's just, if he just ingratiates himself with the person, just hangs around with them a lot, after a while, that facade they put on just chips away, and they start to think of Louis, if not as a friend, of just, they start to be more themselves around him, and that's when the mask slips, and that's when he pounces. That's when he senses weakness. Like, he senses that injured gazelle and goes for the fucking throat.
I think that's the strength, is that he manages to stick around people enough, as you say, to, like, make them trust him, and sits there and, like, one of the ones that was watching, there was a streamer brought up, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to spend the entire day with this streamer and watch them get drunk and get more progressively, like, right-wing and racist over the night.
Oh, yeah.
And then
the opposite of what happens to us.
Yeah. True. we get drunk and we just thought, I love you, man. I love you.
We also as well get super left-wing. We're like, no, women's rights, trans rights.
No, we do. Yeah, that's true. It's funny, but yeah, like, Louis waits there and then brings up quotes from him from 5 years ago, and he's like, oh, well, you said this, and you said that you really regret being right-wing and being all this, and this guy's like, it's 3:00 in the morning, he's drunk, and the dude's like,
the mask has slipped, right?
Like, I fucking hate you and all this. And yeah, the mask has slipped totally, and it's so interesting to see that the way that Louis just portrays himself as, like, he's just this safe, calm British guy that means you no harm.
The Sun Tzu tech, right?
Then he decides, like, now is the time to absolutely nail you down.
Yeah, that's something like, he'll just sit there, and he seems, like I said, very unassuming, very calm, and he's like, say, he's like a lion on the savannah. As soon as he sees that gazelle, as soon as it trips, it's like, oh no, gazelle's like twisted its ankle, and he's like, fucking nail it to the wall, get it.
There's one clip that I saw of him just going to a person that they literally said they're a Nazi, they're okay with identifying it as being a Nazi. It's like, okay, can I come in your house? I'm going to talk to you. And
that's the thing as well. Like, he asks a question, because, like, there are people presumably expecting him to talk about them being a Nazi, but he'll just say, "Can I come in your house?" And there's a psychological phenomenon where I think Milgram dealt with it, where people really don't like saying no when they're asked direct questions or favors, and as a result, because there's just some psychological process when someone asks you a question or a favor that most people just say yes. Like, the example he used was asking people if you can cut in line. If you ask people and just are very firm about it, most of the time they'll say yes. And the example he used is getting his researchers to get, like, cut in line in front of pregnant women and stuff, and people in wheelchairs. Obviously, just to see if it works. And I feel like Louis
obviously, like, in a way to do research, not in a way to be horrible. Yeah,
it's like people's, like, appeal to authority, I think it is. And Louis Theroux seems to take advantage of that, where he doesn't, like, he's not rude about it, but if he very directly asks them a question and doesn't back down from it, like, can I come inside your house?
And
can you show me your room with all your Nazi paraphernalia? Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I find it so interesting because they have such a disarming way of interviewing people, where they come across with, I say, like, clearly they are a level of insincere, but they're clearly a level of sincere enough to, when they ask people, like, oh, can I just check in on this thing? Can I just examine a little bit further? They nearly always get their way. And it's fascinating because you'll see someone go from, fuck you, I don't want to talk to you, to, oh, Louis now in my house.
Yeah, he's in the house.
And spending the entire day with me, and able to cherry pick moments where I'm totally full on Nazi and racist.
There's, not to mention as well, like, just there's only so long someone can be quote unquote on. And a lot of the people that he interviews, the more notable people he's interviewed, are like, so like these virulent racists, these awful people were playing a character. Like, it's an exaggerated version. Like, I mentioned the Westboro Baptist Church one, where obviously when he's interviewing on the street and they're like full on in their personas of like, people don't know Westboro Baptist Church, infamous for protesting like war dead and veterans who died in combat with just like signs saying racial slurs and homophobic slurs. When he's in their house, they're full on the message. But after a certain point, like, they've got to make dinner. They've got to like watch TV. And in those moments, that's when he gets them. He's like, okay, so you're watching TV, like, there's a black person on TV. Does that bother you? I'm like, no. Weakness. Why not?
Yeah.
Why is that okay, but this is that? And you see their worldview crumble in real time, and it just, brick by brick, just takes away from it until it just reveals what's inside, and it is a very weak, sad person who's fighting for control and thinks they have it.
It is a weird thing where you would assume, as a person that's not had a camera on you all the time, that you know that camera's there, but there's a very common phenomenon where people on, documentaries and reality TV shows and stuff, they will very often talk about the fact that, like, you kind of just eventually forget the cameras are there. You
get used to it, right? Similar to like streamers, right? The amount of streamers who've let that mask slip and done something horrific, like hit a partner or abuse a pet or say a racial slur because they don't think the camera's rolling or it's been rolling so long they forgot it's there. And I think in that Westboro Baptist Church one, the most interesting conversations he has are with the younger members of the family. So obviously, like, when they're in front of their parents, they toe the family line. They repeat all of the vitriolic, awful, homophobic, racist bile. But then he's like, after a certain point, obviously they can only say that for so long, and after a while it's like, show me your bedroom. And they go in, it's like, what do you play with? What music do you listen to? And they'll scroll the thing, and they'll come across an artist who maybe doesn't fit your parents. Like, oh, well, I don't tell my parents that I listen to it. And he goes, would you feel like you're rebelling because you're listening to that music? Well, sort of. Yeah, and it's so interesting to see him pick it. Like, I think there's a younger girl in the family. I think she's like high school, college age, and she doesn't. He follows her to her school, which sounds a lot creepier than it is. But
less creepy. It's a documentary, right?
Yeah, he's just more interested in like her day to day life. Like, do you tell people what your family do? And she's like, no, not really. Why not? I thought you were proud of it. Well, just some people, they don't have the best opinion of my family. Why do you think that is? And then you see like talking to a boy. It's like, would your family be happy if they knew you were talking to this boy? No, not really, but I do like him. And it's just, you see the mask slip and you see like their entire, especially with something like that, where their entire brand, their identity was built on hatred. How much of it is performative?
Again, I don't want to bring up too much of the specific details because, again, it is quite harrowing. But I would encourage people to make their own way to watch some of these.
A lot of them are available for free online, yeah.
Yeah, I will, again, watch one about, like, the rise of kind of the internet culture and alt-right culture in America at the moment. And there's a moment where they're interviewing a woman, and Louise talking to this woman, and it's like, you were part of this movement. You were literally like in like riots and stuff. She was like, well, yeah, at some point I thought it was kind of meme culture, and eventually it turns out that like they hated my entire existence, and it's just I don't want to get too deep.
It's harrowing,
it
right?
upsets me. It really does. But the idea that like people can sit there and go, yeah, I now realize that like they hated me as an individual. Again, it's hurting to say, but like,
yeah, like they realized they were a tool, right? They were being used as effects. Like, you're a useful tool to further the goals of just a reductive, awful,
they were only
racist,
being accepted
patriarchal ideology
for a small amount of time to help push that narrative,
and then discarded just as easily because they don't actually matter, right? They're tools,
and they were hated for being the person that they were and just the person they were born as. And it's horrible. And again, it's why I'm kind of like not wanting to do this as a Wiki Weekends episode to put clips in, because it's not nice.
It'd be awful to watch, but it's interesting to talk about and
it's I think important to educate yourself on the other side of matters, which is why I like to watch things like this, because I think just putting a blindfold on is not the answer. I think,
and here's the thing as well:
actually
be educated on it by someone, as you said, who adheres to journalistic best practice.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, if you want to talk about, like, if you want to watch true crime, or it's probably a bad example because, like, you know, even like the documentaries on a lot of true crime cases are exploitative, but at least they have to adhere to journalistic best practices, like not harassing family members and stuff. But I think, like, if you're going to go watch someone talk about this kind of subject, someone who's like stated goal isn't making money, it's actually answering a question. And another example of this is, are you familiar with Ben Zand? So another documentarian.
No, I'm not. And I just want to say, like, obviously, Karl is helping me quite a bit with this subject, and it is mainly just because, like, obviously, this is something that I'm clearly, like, affected by in terms of, like, just emotionally, and I can tell that, like, Karl's trying to bring me back.
It'd be weird if you weren't. That's the thing.
And it's just, like, it's one of those things of, like, I do really think it's important, as horrible as it is to see, to educate yourself rather than just turn a blind eye to it, as I say. And like, I didn't enjoy the experience, but I think it's educational.
Yeah, there's also an appropriate
it's important
tone
to mention.
Yeah, there's an appropriate tone to discuss and consume that kind of. That's why I got so pissed off at the stuff we mentioned earlier. It's just like Louis Theroux, if you asked him, like, do you care if people watch your documentaries? Like, of course I care if people watch them, but I'm not putting a fucking, like, advert in the middle of them. The end goal isn't to make money or have millions of people watch. It's to raise awareness of something that fascinates me as a journalist, as a documentarian. But in regards to Ben Zand...
I was going to say, just I think especially now, the way that we see that politics are going, like, in a lot of places like the UK and the US, I think it's important to mention, and important to educate yourself on, important to talk about. Don't like it, and I'm sorry that this, you know, quote-unquote comedy podcast is maybe taking a bit more of a
darker
tone. You know, dark tone, I say,
but it's handy to be equipped with the language to discuss those topics, right? Because if you only know them as abstract concepts, they're difficult to engage with.
It's important to have discussions and not just be hateful and ignorant, right?
Yes. Except for if the person you're being ignorant of makes a comedy podcast called True Crime Obsessed. Fuck those people. But Ben Zand is a documentarian, and they made a couple of documentaries for Channel 4, some of which are like on similarly like dark subjects, and one that I found fascinating. It's The Secret World of Incels. So you probably don't need much extra information on what they do there. But one of the fascinating things about a documentary, it's very Louis Theroux-esque, where he meets with a couple of people and just talks to them, and he's very disarming in that Louis Theroux-esque way. And one of the people he's talking to is a self-admitted incel, and they might as well be like, it feels almost bordering on parody, because when he first meets them and he asks them, what do you believe, and they say the spiel, and if you spend any time online, you know every like thing they're saying is like straight off of like the Reddit rulebook from whatever subreddit they moderate. But as they go on, you realise it's because they've never actually thought about it. And when Ben Zand starts to ask them, why do you think this? And like, well, that's just how women are. And he asks him, have you ever spoken to a woman? No, because I'm afraid that. And he lifts off all the spiel that those weirdo assholes would say of like, oh, I'm going to get accused of sexual impropriety, or they're not going to like me because I'm not like a Chad. And what the guy does, it's really wholesome because it's so British, is he just takes the guy to the pub, gets him drunk, and then just goes to a group of lasses and goes, do you mind being in a documentary? I'm like, yeah, sure. Brings both to a table and goes, oh, my friend here, we're doing a documentary on guys who haven't spoke to women much. Just, ask us some questions.
Oh,
and he just,
yes, no, I have seen that.
You might have seen the clip, and the guy's like, and he just asks him a couple of questions like, is it true that women won't like guys if they look like me? And the girl's like, no, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
He just gets, and just summed it up. It's like, yeah, we made this incel, not an incel. We're just talking to the pub. It's the most British way, right?
We just fuck it. Let's go spoons.
Well, are you familiar with the Barry memes? Are you familiar with the Barry memes? Speaking of memes, Barry. So there's like a very British-centric meme, but I'm going to find it now. So there is like, do you know when like Andrew Tate was becoming like a thing, and it was like, you need to be an alpha and like a top G or whatever.
Oh no, not an alpha. You need to be the Sigma. Don't forget.
I think it's Barry. Is it Barry? Yeah, it's just. And what they do is they just found this picture of this old man who just looks like just the guy you'd find in Wetherspoons having a pint. And people started to contrast all that weird, vitriolic, like misogynistic, what's the word now? Like rhetoric. And it's just contrasted with a picture of good old Barry, there his pint, just giving like really sensible, no-nonsense advice. Of like, So it's like, oh, you need to be a top G and hit the gym. It's like, no, just look after yourself and be the best man that you can.
Let's be honest, this meme image of Barry looks like a bit of a gammon.
Well, that's why it's funny, because it's contrasting like that normal rhetoric you'd hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
like, if anyone's not aware, a gammon is basically just like a term used for like, I think, angry British men specifically.
Yes.
Of like being very pink and very salty.
Yes.
And that is meant to essentially mean you're a bit of a dickhead. With probably a high blood pressure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that is a nice use of a meme of like the reversal of that.
Yeah, so it's like basically it's like
being nice.
Like the contrast will be like, oh, you need to go be a weirdo asshole, hit the gym, cut out all members of your life. It's like, go to the pub and have a pint with your mates.
Yeah. And I did recently encounter a Barry.
You encountered Barry? A nice Barry or the bad Barry?
No, the good.
I think Barry's the term they use. I'm not sure, but it's just like, it's a picture of just like this kindly looking old dude with just a pint, and it's just the idea of like the wizened old man in the pub who just gives you really no nonsense, solid advice that you need to hear. It's like,
yeah, it wasn't obviously quite that level. I was at work at the time, and just some guy came like storming over to me.
Okay,
and I was expecting like, you know, it looked a little bit like a Barry.
Looks a bit like a Barry.
I was just expecting the worst. I was like, the way you walked over to me, I was expecting, oh God, what is the complaint to me going to be? And just went, you know, I've had a nice time here. I've really enjoyed the food. You've been great. Thank you so much. And it's really nice to see just everyone here getting along. I was like, thank you. It's nice to, like, obviously most people only talk to staff if it's a complaint.
Yeah.
But every now and then, it's just a nice moment where you get someone come over and, like, a little bit aggressively storm over, but it's just nice to have that moment of, like, well, someone just appreciates that we have a, like, nice work environment and they've had a nice experience.
Yeah. And it's it's great, like I said, of just the Barry. Of just giving you that good old-fashioned advice. Like, you don't need to, you know, become a top G. You just need to, you know, not be a bell end.
I think that might be the best advice that we can give
really
right
is.
now.
I'm trying to find like some more examples. They're difficult to find because obviously when you search like British memes, there's ironically a lot of ones that are really racist.
Yeah,
and that's what like this came in like to contrast.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a subreddit called like,
there's a lot of you know, St. George's flags being raised and a lot of protests being made in the point of England and racism, and it's awful and it's shit and it's not good right now.
Yeah, and that's like why it was designed. It was to contrast that specifically of that idea of like, let's celebrate being British, but in that like ironic way of we're not going to be like, for example, like one that's I think it's OK Mate Wanker, which is one of those like subs on Reddit that specifically tries to contrast that with what I feel is very British, a very British sense of humour of being like very self-depreciating. where it's like, Joe, you have those like weird, like what's it, like those? They always have like a picture of like some Roman statue or something like that, and it's like the West has fallen. And it's like, we don't make stuff like this anymore, and it's like a picture of a cathedral or something. And they're like, true British culture, it's like a picture of a Greggs. Stuff like that. It's like, celebrate the mediocrity of Britain, because our mediocrity is our strength.
But obviously also, like, to not confuse people. Like, I would sit here and openly say that, like, immigration is one of our strengths, and it's one of the things obviously being used right now as, like, rhetoric to distract people from the real problems.
Yeah, it's like, scapegoating a small amount of people to hide from bigger issues.
Yeah, I do apologise for this not being as comedy up on a comedy podcast as we usually do, but, Louis Theroux, I guess, made me do it, but yeah, I
said, like, one of the things they celebrate is great. Like, it's got the true being British is being awkward and mediocre.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to bring it down to this episode, but I watched some things and it made me feel, and I wanted to talk about it, and hopefully that's what people are here for.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that it wasn't just me gushing about K-pop Demon Hunters again. Go watch that video instead if you want me being fun.
Yeah, one of the things about like that OK Mate Wanker sub is like, 'cause it celebrates like, all things British, and multiculturalism is part of being British. It's like, are you familiar with the idea of just like every working class like man worth his salt respects the shit out of his local kebab shop? Like the boss man.
They should.
Yeah,
they
like,
should.
What the idea of like the boss man when like the kebab shop.
I'm not familiar with it, but goddamn, the amount of kebabs I've had, you've got to respect the kebab man.
And that's like the response to like that weird like nationalism of like, oh, Britain is trying to be all like racist. But I said, no, man. I said a multiculturalism is our strength, because the irony would be that all those like those gammons moaning about like, oh, get the foreigners out, simple as. Is that they're sat there drinking like a German beer. They go for an Indian.
Mm-hmm.
They like they go to the local kebab shop. Their local corner shop is run by someone from
driving
Pakistan
their non-English car,
driving their non-English car. Like, they probably work with a couple of people on the building site who are from Europe. And all it is about is like, take that very insular mindset you have towards it, and it's like expand that towards like an entire country. Like, surely you want, like, how the community aspect you feel with all, those different regions and people and cultures might mixing together to create what amounts to the summation of your life. Surely you'd want that for the rest of the country. It's fun though, right?
I know. It's all fucked.
The world is fucked, yes.
Sorry to bring that to people's attention. Again, I tried to distract everyone with K-pop Demon Hunters. And if you're not watching that one, you're watching this one, and I'm sorry. Yeah, I tried. I tried to be fun, and I tried to now apparently just bring Louis in to just like bring
him in.
But no, yeah, I 100% would say, like, again, it's worth educating yourself. It's worth talking about, but I'm so sorry.
Lucas, all right, here we go. So the top meme from like OK Mate Wanker is a now legendary tweet that sums up Britain. It's like, UK rappers be like, she suck on my willy, it's quite delightful. If I catch you in West Gloucestershire, you'll catch the rifle.
Thank you for at least trying to bring some humour into this, right? Karl. Karl, I hope you've got something more delightful and brightful to bring to us after the break.
You want to jump straight into my wiki?
I need to go to the toilet.
Okay,
so we'll take a quick break. Need to give myself a minute to just give myself a better disposition.
Yeah, when you mentioned like Louis Theroux, I know a lot of his documentaries like deal with quite harsh subjects, but maybe I wasn't the best person, or I didn't do the best thing, like immediately being negative, like fuck true crime.
Yeah, and I think we both just drove ourselves down a rabbit hole.
We did.
We did. So let's take a break. Let's freshen up and let's be more brightful and delightful in the second half of this podcast.
Yeah. Cheers.
Have you got any housekeeping to take care of at all?
Besides just mentioning, hey, that video I mentioned of a couple episodes of me doing a video essay on which sitcom dad is best at sex, that is now available for viewing over on the Fact Fiend channel. YouTube algorithm is not kind to any video that mentions any topic like sex or violence, like, to go into to go back to the reference earlier people using like unaliving and stuff like that. And in fact, I think Red Letter Media did a video about it as of this morning, which breaks down like just how fucked it is as a massive channel. They're a massive channel who generally don't engage with the algorithm or trends, but they're going like, just straight up 30-40% drop in content for no discernible reason. Or views on our content for no discernible reason.
So there is a discernible reason, and it is AI call.
Yes, it is, and they get into that, right? Because obviously there's no viewable reason from a reasonable person's perspective, but it's AI.
Yeah, so
go
there
watch
is
it.
Basically a thing. Go watch that video. Please go watch the latest Fact Fiend video on sitcom dads that are best at getting their way. Is maybe the way to
we
put it.
can't say sex. We'll get demonetized.
Yeah, you just said it, Karl.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't matter, right? Because
I guess not.
One of
because
the points that the AI can't always detect when you say the word.
I went on to restricted mode on YouTube, which is basically
fun fact,
distinction.
Is that it might be on by default. If you're watching this on YouTube, please check your settings. Go to like where you're signing out. You might have restricted settings on by default because YouTube did that for a bunch of accounts and didn't tell them. Isn't that fun?
Yes. Basically, YouTube is now using AI to distinguish whether you should or shouldn't be on restricted mode, based on what it thinks your age is, not necessarily any categorical facts. So yeah, you may be now on restrict mode, and when I put myself on restricted mode and went to the Wiki Weekdays channel, Karl, we've been making content for like over 2 years, close to 2.5 years at this point, and putting out at least 3 videos a week. Can you guess how many videos were viewable on our homepage when I went into restricted mode?
I'm going to just be hopeful and say all of them.
5. Yeah, 5.
Actually, we don't even talk about like
that's less than 2 weeks of content.
We don't even talk about that much stuff, right?
2 weeks of content.
No, I mean, we don't talk about stuff that's
fulfilled.
like controversial, but yeah, it's the algorithm now. It's like if AI detects you saying a swear word, automatically restricts it. And restricted mode might be on by default.
Yeah, so nearly every channel across YouTube has been talking about this, of like, just a solid 30 to 50% drop in views.
Since about August as well. So if you're a content creator yourself and you've been wondering, like, if you go look at your analytics, I guarantee you, because we noticed it, didn't we? We noticed it dip around August time.
We thought it was just us, and then I've been listening to other YouTube channels who have also put out statements or videos, especially about this and stuff, and like, oh, it's not just us, we're all just fucked.
Yes,
right.
And something that's like, it's not immediately hopeful, but it hopefully will result in the people at the very tippy top who have been making the awful decisions, like such as the implementation of AI, might very well have something biting in the ass. Because something I never considered, Lucas. So presumably you've been on YouTube, right? And you've realised, man, YouTube fucking sucks now.
I watch YouTube nearly every day, yeah.
Yeah, and you notice like the sheer amount of like AI slop that's on there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Something I never considered is YouTube, one of its primary selling points, one of the reasons why it is able to become the de facto platform for video hosting online, is that it offers, by default, to every user of the platform, unlimited free hosting for videos. And that is a pretty good value add, and it does mean YouTube technically runs at a loss on 90% of its users, but the other 10% make content that people watch.
Yeah, no, for every person that's got 10 million views on a video, there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of people on the other side
with zero views.
Have got 0 views.
And the wall, or the barrier for that like not being unsustainable, is the fact that even if people are uploading content every day that no one's watching, there is like, there's effort required to do that. Like a person could, if I could record myself 24 hours a day and upload that footage over and over and over again, but there's an amount of effort that is required to do that. With AI, the actual flaw doesn't exist anymore. And there is a very real chance that Google is going to run out of server space. Because if you think about it, AI content can be made for free with Google's own tools and uploaded. Like, the reason why, the value proposition of like uploading a shit ton of AI slop to YouTube is that you can upload and create an effectively infinite amount for almost no cost and upload it with no cost or barrier for entry. And that's only going to increase as like, it's like, remember like NFTs and stuff, it's the race towards the bottom, right? As they become less profitable, start churning out more. There is a very real scenario some point in the future where Google's going to run out of like server space because there's going to be so much AI generated slop being generated automatically with its own tools en masse and uploaded en masse for free to YouTube. Because think about it, right? Like, you look at those AI channels. Like, I think Red Letter Media again did a video on it. Of there's these thousands of channels now that do AI generated like movie trailers to try and like trick people who are clicking on videos. Some of these channels will upload like 15, 20 times a day, multiple copies of the same video over and over again. It's just an entirely automated process because it does make money. And as like, the people get wise to it, the answer is upload more. And maybe someday, hopefully very soon, some exec at YouTube is going to get fucking fired for making this decision.
Yeah, I don't know how you find an onboard of like infinite.
That's the thing,
content.
Right? Like, think about always like these content farms. They have literally zero incentive to not just upload as much as they can because the actual cost to them is zero.
Karl.
Yes.
What's your wiki? Because we've been so down today.
That's what I thought that might be like. It's a silver lining, admittedly, a very small one, but I feel that just at some point, that camel is going to have too much straw on its back. Yeah. And that camel's going to say, no more. And when it does, it's going to buck off its rider and it's going to stomp them to death. And hopefully we can all be there when that person is stomped to death by that annoyed camel.
One thing I did find very interesting is that technically, talking about camels, a little fact for people is that apparently, I'd say don't fact check me on this, but apparently camels store fat in the humps, not water, and their fat technically works out to make more water than there is fat per gram. So they're super efficient.
More efficient I'm guessing that might be it's more efficiently hydrating per gram than water.
Yes, that is apparently the way that they store it. Is like it's literally more efficient to store the fat and essentially have that turn into
the
hydration
equivalent amount of water, right? Because I think it can't be that it's more hydrating than just the same amount of water. Or it can't be that it's better than water. It produces more water than would be worth the fat. Because that's just not how science and physics work. But I
you
bet
burn up calories as well as fat, right?
It's more hydrating than that. It reminds me of when I learned that. Pure water is less hydrating than, say, like, electrolytes and water. Because hydration isn't about just the water, it's about the salt.
And I presume that's probably the kind of chemical process that's going on. But, the amount of hydration for their fat is more hydrating than the same amount of water.
Interesting. Go camels, like being super efficient. You know what's not efficient? AI, suck my dick. Right, so I thought we'd return to one of my wikis, because we only got to C on the wiki of List of Urban Legends. So I want to give the audience
It's
what they
one on
want
camels.
and give them the D. So we're going to start with D. So to remind everybody, list of urban legend. This is a list of urban legends, and an urban legend or urban myth is a modern genre of folklore, often consisting of fictional stories associated with the macabre, superstitious, ghosts, demons, cryptids, extraterrestrials, creepypastas, and other fear-generative narrative elements. Urban legends are often rooted in local history and popular culture. And we're on to D.
Okay.
I'll skip over the ones that I'm guessing the algorithm and also just our souls out of it to take, because the first entry on D is Dead Children's Playground.
Well,
let's skip over that, shall we?
Let's skip over that. The first thing that I thought of was... Bear with me. I'm thinking this is a real thing. I think it is. But Dingodales, because just of Crash Bandicoot.
Dingodile. That was purported to be an urban myth, but it ends up being real. The dingo ate my baby, which is really this is a story that like true crime podcasts have covered this, and it's a fucking harrowing story where you must have seen that in The Simpsons, right? I think Simpsons referenced it, pop culture referenced like a dingo ate my baby. Mm-hmm. That was a real story where a real lady really had her baby eaten, snatched away in the night by a dingo. And she was not only vilified on the world stage, arrested and sent to prison for a crime she didn't commit. Hack comedians made fun of it for decades. Jesus. To the point where, like, dingo ate my baby is like a shorthand for hysterical woman. Even though she was 100% right.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we're going to move past all the ones that are about in the D entry. There's a lot of death. So we're going to skip that to Devil. So, one of the popular urban legends from the D category is the Devil's Chair. It's a folklore legend that describes a class of funerary or memorial sculpture common in the United States in the 19th century. So it's like a chair.
So, what is the Devil's Chair?
So in some graveyards, it is a funerary tradition to carve a seat. So you have to sit down when you're in the graveyard, paying your respects. The folklore posits that sometimes if you sit in this chair, you get a bit haunted. Okay. And there actually is a really good short movie. I think it's just called The Chair. So if you go onto YouTube and type in The Chair short movie, someone made a really interesting horror movie based around not the concept of this specifically, but about a haunted ass chair, which I would recommend. I'm not going to say too much about it. It's a short film, so giving you its title and its name and its basic premise should be enough if that intrigues you. But if I tell you any more, I'll probably spoil it because it's only 10 minutes.
Okay.
But then we have The Devil's Footprints, and this is found in Devon in the UK. And it's a phenomenon that occurred during February of 1855 around South Devon, England. And it was reported that someone found the devil's footprints. And what is the traditional depiction of the devil in folklore? What does he look like, Lucas? Beelzebub
they have like they have goat's feet, right?
Cloven hooves, right? So the devil's footprints, what they found were some cloven hoof marks in the snow in Devon, and went, that's the devil.
Not a goat?
Not a goat. Because it says that they covered some 100 miles. And that, admittedly, that's a really far amount of distance for a goat to walk. Do you know what it's more likely than? The fucking devil did it. So if I was the devil and I existed and I could go anywhere on Earth, I would not go to the UK.
No.
I'm going to be honest, right?
I wouldn't want to walk 100 miles over the UK either.
Yep.
Like, did a goat get lost? Maybe. I think a goat might have got lost.
But here's the thing, like, footprints are often seen as, like, it's weird. Footprints, like, when it comes to, like, archaeology, are often seen as, like, this is definitive proof of the thing existing. Like, when they find, like, footprints belonging to a dinosaur, it's like, we now have, this is the closest we're going to get to, like, seeing this animal in the flesh. Like, this is evidence that this animal walks on planet Earth. And from its footprint, we can determine a lot about it. Its weight, its gait, how fast it was moving, in what direction it was moving, whether it was injured, based on, like, the weight distribution and stuff like that. It's also the thing that's the most bullshit that I don't believe Like, for example, like, we found some hoof marks in the snow. It's definitely the demon. Which I find weird. It's both the most concrete evidence you can get and, like, fucking bullshit flimsy as anything.
Yeah, right. Like, you can say that, like, it's the devil for sure, or you can just be like, well, a goat might have walked away.
It might have been a goat.
And it might have just been a goat. And, like, the idea to then turn that into an entire tale of, like, well, the devil definitely walked across these lands. It's like, like, you know, Occam's razor. The simplest answer is normally the correct one. Correct of, like, one. It might have just been a goat.
I do, though, find this interesting. Like I said, I think footprints like the flimsiest evidence for the paranormal, but there is something very interesting and spooky. Okay, we're getting to spooky months soon, so look forward to all of October, for me at least, because I know, Lucas, you're not too into your horror. I'm looking to do entirely spooky topics throughout the month of December. Oh, the month of October, sorry. I would be freaked the fuck out if I saw some footprints appear on my floor.
Well, on your floor, yeah.
But also, like, there is something to be said about footprints. Like, they seem so innocuous, but they can be quite spooky. You know what I mean? Like, when you're like walking through the snow, and there's like nothing there, but then you see some footprints.
Yeah.
There is something to be said about that.
You know, as a logical person, I normally assume that it's some ghostly demonic figure that has made those footprints.
Yeah, but like, there is something about the idea of something that's been wholly undisturbed. Like I said, like snow. But the only thing that's disturbed it is so perfectly preserved. It's like, it's like a blemish on like an otherwise perfect image, right? And it would naturally draw the eye, right? It's like when you got like a dead pixel on your screen, even though it's like, admittedly, it's a minor, almost imperceptible flaw. It does tend to draw the eye.
No, yeah, it's true. And like the thing I think of is like in video games when you kind of like make the first pass through the snow, and like there's certain video games like Red Dead 2 and Death Stranding where like, they actually let you leave the footprints in the snow. Big spooky footprints. And it is very satisfying.
It's satisfying, yeah. As like I said, there's something about the idea of footprints. Like it's the nature equivalent of the dead pixel. But we move on now to the Devil's Tramping Ground, which is a camping spot located in the forest near Harper's Crossroad in Bear Creek, North Carolina. It's just spooky haunted camping ground. Let's go.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, what would you least likely to be haunted by? Also, let me rephrase the question. I know, like you, like myself, you don't believe too much in the paranormal.
No, not really.
What aspect of the paranormal would you be least likely to hedge your bets on? So, for example, I'm not scared of the devil. I would happily walk into a church and call the devil a pussy. But
yeah,
I would be less inclined to do the same thing in like a haunted house and challenge the spirits. You see what I mean here? Do you get what I'm trying to ask?
I get what you mean. Yeah.
Is there a hierarchy in your head of paranormal phenomenon? Like, you don't believe any of it, but you definitely don't believe some of it more than others.
I think, like, I definitely, for some reason, be less inclined to, like, try and, kind of, like, summon a being such as the Candyman. And I don't know why, but I'd be less inclined to do that.
That's one of the ones where I'm absolutely convinced that's all bullshit.
No, it is. I am convinced that it's all bullshit, but I'd be less inclined to ask, like, the Candyman or something like that to come to me and terminate me than, say, for example, like, I say, walking through a church and coaxing the devil.
That's interesting.
I don't know why.
For me, like, the Bloody Mary style games would be the one that I'd be like, I'd do that right now. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not fearful at all.
The idea of a person just being some kind of horrible person and wanting to have me on is, like, way scarier than the general concept of the devil or hell.
Okay.
To me, I don't know. I don't really know
the
how to
idea
explain
of challenging that entity to come get you in a specific location, as opposed to a more nebulous, broad concept like the devil or a spooky ghost.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because I don't believe in any of it, but the idea of just, well, ghosts exist is way less scary to me.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't really have a problem with, like, challenging ghosts.
Yeah, because I would be wary of challenging a ghost, but only if I knew the specific tale of what happened. So, in regards to true crime, if I was in a location where a particularly heinous crime had occurred, I think part of it would be because I would just, my own sense of like morality would dissuade me from mocking or challenging a ghost, even though I don't believe in ghosts, just because it feels disrespectful to the memory of the person.
Yeah, I guess that's where like a little bit of difference comes in, because if you're tying it to like a specific person, then I say you're like kind of fucking with their memory a little bit.
Yeah, I'd be more dissuaded from doing that than I would like calling out like some nebulous evil concept. But we move on now to the Dover Demon, a creature reportedly sighted in the town of Dover, Massachusetts. So not the UK. It's just some demon running around. Gonna get you.
Is there any specifics on
No,
the
it's
demon?
just it's a creature reportedly sighted in 1977, which to me just sounds like raccoon. Someone got drunk, raccoon got him.
Because if they don't do anything like special, that's when I started thinking like, oh, just some weird shit went down. Like I should say, a raccoon or something.
Well, there's like so many like reports from, like UFO nuts. Which again, I'm inclined to believe that there's little green men out there somewhere, but just when you read a lot of the reports, it's like, okay, so Cletus was off his tits on moonshine, and he was driving home and saw a light in the distance. It's like, is there any chance that could have just been someone in the distance on their phone?
Yeah.
Like again, Occam's razor, right? What's more likely? It was an alien UFO that only you saw, or just a star reflecting off a body of water, reflecting through the woods and shimmering, right?
There's so many UFO reportings now that are like a drone, and it's like, okay, so what did you see? And it's like, oh well, I saw something kind of hovering.
And it moved erratically on like it moved on like a
not like a plane. It's like, was it a drone? Was it maybe just a drone?
The thing is, though, I always think to that like prank that guy pulled, where he put like a Halloween Grim Reaper skeleton onto a drone and flew it around a park. And it's like, because it moves so silently, it gets everybody. It's great. And folks at home, while I was enjoying giving you the D, Lucas says that you're not feeling too well, I am on for we just got a section of you.
I've just kind of come on with something and I'm not feeling great, so
you're taking a funny turn, and we don't want you feeling well throwing up on camera as much as that would probably generate good content. So I've given you the D, I'll give you some of the F, or some of the E, I should say. I'll give you the F later. And yeah, we'll just say thank you for watching.
I apologise. I just don't feel great right now.
It happens.
Yeah, so apologies, but I hope you all enjoyed the podcast. But yeah, just feeling a bit iffy today, apparently.
It happens to the best of us. So yeah, as I said, I've given you all the D. If you enjoyed that, go let us know in the Discord, because we probably not want to talk too much about the other subject we talked about today. It's been a strange one. I don't look like. For October, are we talking about spooky content? I'm hoping to talk about spooky content that is entirely fictional. So